All right, on this last problem, our task is going to be to identify from general form what this is the equation of. So remember to do that you want to start by grouping together your like variables and then moving any constant terms over to the right-hand side. So I'm going to have 4x squared minus 80x minus y squared minus 16y, and then I'm going to move that 140 over, so I'm going to subtract it, so equals negative 140. Now remember, your rule for completing the square is that the leading coefficient has to be positive 1. So for the x's, I need to factor out a positive 4 in order to have that leading coefficient become positive 1. So that gives you x squared minus 20x, and make sure that you leave space for your constant term so that you can pick that here in a bit. And then with the y's, you also are going to need to factor out there because, again, that leading coefficient has to be positive 1. So right now we have negative 1, meaning that's what we need to factor out of the y's. So that gives you y squared plus 16y, and this is still equal to negative 140. So now to fill in this value, b over 2 squared, so negative 20 over 2 squared gives you negative 10 squared, which gives you 100. So we're going to add 100 here. But remember that when you add that to the other side, you have to think about what that would be in standard form. So that would actually be a 400 that you are taking over to the right-hand side. So in factored form, we still have that leading coefficient on the x's and then quantity squared. So that would be x minus 10, so whatever you had before you squared it. So x minus 10 quantity squared. And then I have that minus 1 there. Now I have to find my constant value for my y's. So for my y's, b over 2 squared, again, your b here is 16. So 16 over 2 squared gives you 8 squared, which gives you 64. So I'm going to add that 64 there. Again, thinking through what that would be if I distributed. While that's not going to change from a 64, that is going to be negative when I take it to the right-hand side. So I have a minus 64 over there. So for my y's, something squared, I'm going to have y plus 8 quantity squared. And then this is all going to be equal to 196. So because of the subtraction sign, that actually gives away to you right away that this is going to be a hyperbola. But this does not match the form of a hyperbola that you have on your reference sheet. So if you look at that reference sheet, for this to be a hyperbola, it has to be set equal to 1, meaning that we are going to need to divide through this 196 all the way across. So when we do that, we end up with x minus 10 quantity squared all over 49 minus, so that negative 1 is going to become your minus sign for the hyperbola, y plus 8 quantity squared over 196, and this would all be equal to 1. So again, this is going to be a hyperbola. This is going to be a hyperbola that orients itself horizontally, that has a center at 10, negative 8. So just some things to think about there. This is the last review video, so good luck on your work if you have watched these all the way through. I hope that your Chapter 8 review assignment goes well, and if you have questions, you know how to Canvas message me.